Hello everyone, you know exactly what time it is. We are here back with the Creator Series. We are here for the first time in season number 6, season number 2 of the F2 Championship. I, for one, am very excited. We had the playoffs a couple of weeks ago. They were hugely exciting, and hopefully this season lives up to the expectation that was built up just a few weeks ago. In the virtual commentary box for the curtain raiser, it is myself, Tom, and it is Jamie, returning after a few weeks out. Jamie, we've got some classic tracks. We've got some big names in the series this season. I am hugely excited for this.
Oh, absolutely. And g'day, all the way down here from Western Australia. But no, this is exciting. And of all tracks, Brazil as the season opener. Yes. I'm actually surprised to tell you that F2 in real life has never driven around Sao Paulo, surprisingly enough. But what I can tell you is I feel like Brazil is actually a really nice track to start off. It's diverse, it's technical, at the same time, a lot of great places to overtake. You've got turn 1 and the center S's, and then you've got turn 8 and 10, which are like the peaks of Sao Paulo, through obviously following with 6 and 7, and then 8 and 9 going into 8 and 10. And then obviously on the news of a new season, we have promotions and demotions from F2 and F1. So from F1 going up from a promotion from F2, we have Matty D13, Hayden Gillis, Unstop Rob, shocking, looks like Curbs and Chesnoid, and then demoted to F2 is Punju, Mr. Dale JE, El Taco Man, and F1 Alex.
Yes, so we are losing the top 3 in the standings from last season. It's very interesting. It probably shows that the playoffs worked as we were expecting. They were very exciting. We do have one big name in particular joining us from the F1 series. That is Mr. Dale. You will all know about Dale. Is such a big character, and I think will be a huge asset to F2 this season. He's gunning for that title though. He's gunning for that re-promotion back into F1. I think he's got to be one of the favourites going into the season.
Yeah, he made a few mistakes going into the playoffs, and I think he's probably a bit disappointed to even be here in F2. But I think it's an exciting prospect nevertheless, and I think it should offer some interesting battles throughout this entire season, not only here in Sao Paulo, but, you know, we have a calendar of 7 rounds starting at Brazil and ending at Monza. So, sorry, actually, it's going to be Imola. My apology, I thought it was Monza, but having a closer look, it is going to be the Temple of Speed to finish up as our season finale. Another interesting one to choose, but should be good. Anyway, but yeah, no, I think right now he's coming in with a lot of confidence, and for good reason. He's looked quite competitive throughout majority of the playoffs and throughout F1 as well. So I'm sure this should be an interesting fight and a good, I guess, comeback redemption arc, you could say, for the driver.
Absolutely. And we've also got the 2 drivers that didn't go up, as you mentioned, F1 Alex and Punju. Punju was so unlucky. I think we all felt for Punju after what happened in the playoffs. He'll be hoping to bounce back stronger. We've got some of the names that you'll be familiar with as well, the likes of Hoodie Pete, B-Roy, Devon Butler, Adam Sanderson, F1 Scott, who's been in the commentary box a few times this season, is racing for PHM Racing. And obviously we've got Dale coming down. Jess Gamer as well was one of the names I just saw there as well. So a stacked field, I think you can agree. And well, seeing that we've lost the top 3 in the standings from last season, I think this could be a hugely competitive second season of F2.
It could be, and I, to be honest, it's not a could. I think it will be. I think the prospects from F1 coming down from F2 and overall just the F2 grid this season, it's an open book. I think you'll see drivers that maybe weren't so competitive, or at least in that top 5 fighting in the top 3 for constant podiums, showing that consistency and showing what they really can do as a driver. And I think we are starting to see, I guess, a fresh start for Formula 2. Obviously, this is quite new to Creator Series. You know, Formula 2 hasn't been here since Season 1, so that's another thing to consider, and I think this should just spice things up a little further.
Absolutely. Before we get going, everybody in the chat that has joined us for the start of the season, if you want to get some predictions going, I think we could have a very interesting evening or afternoon's action as we are getting ready on the formation lap. And it will be well, we say a reverse grid championship standings, but a little bit difficult to work out once we've lost a few drivers, of course. So you can see the grid on the left-hand side of the screen. And, well, to his pleasure, I imagine it is Mr. Dale who will be leading us away from pole position. And if last season is anything to go by, the driver that started on pole typically had a very clean and very dominant sprint race.
He did, and it should be intriguing to see how this kind of plays out. Like I said before, he's shown a lot of confidence. He's said many things that would urge a lot of confidence from him, and I guess he's just feeling very confident coming into this. I had a little look into time trial. I found his username, and he's in the top 115 for F2 for Brazil. So he's clearly competitive around this track as well. Obviously, we haven't had a great idea until now, obviously, as we get into the sprint race. But I think with the fact that starting from pole just gives you that extra advantage, and also specifically at Brazil, the center S's kind of help someone who's on pole position starting on that outside line. I think this could be a perfect opportunity for not only him to pull away, but take that P1 by a significant margin.
Definitely, and it's going to be really interesting to see how he deals with it. F1 Scott, currently third on the grid, is a driver that has demonstrated that he can be very quick at times. Had a really good qualifying. I think it was in the season finale of Saudi a few weeks ago, but then got caught up a little bit in the race. Be interesting to see how he manages to deal with everything. But we're coming around Zhengzhou for the first time this evening, or this afternoon. I'm getting way too excited. And we're getting ready to go on a track that I think you and I can both agree is absolutely legendary.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, from Senna and his pretty much destroyed arm waving that Brazilian flag in front of his home crowd, and then also considering some of the more recent battles between Hamilton and Verstappen that sent wide with Verstappen against Hamilton, and now considering today, it's just overall quite a technical, fast, flowing track. Like I said, it's very diverse. You know, it has a lot of opportunities for overtaking. I think anyone's going to take that opportunity with both hands on that steering wheel and just go for it as quickly as possible. So it should be interesting how this will play out. Obviously, for the first round here as the opening round, as I mentioned just before us, getting to the end of this formation lap for the sprint race. And right now, just moments away. Hold your breath, ladies and gentlemen, because now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights. The lights go out, and ooh, it's a bit off for me. Whoops! The lights go out, and it's Pelt's medal here for the F2 Creator Series. Here for the start of the season, Dale does get away well. F1's got up to P2 immediately. Goshwish up into the inside line, can't get it done. Stays in P3 for the time being. B-Roy on the outside, looking for a move, just starting to close in on that rear tire of Goshwish, but stays in P4. Patterson in P5 at the moment. The Prema trying to follow trail behind, using the tow from his car, but it seems like no further advancements from him. Goes into turn 3, staying in P7 for G Watts. As we continue further down, looks like it's overall pretty clean, but will to action between Daniel Gilligan and Jess Gamer. Up to P10 goes the Van Amersfoort car. F2 already on a roll. Looks like Goshwish up to P4, making a move against B-Roy, but it's actually the other way around. B-Roy up into P3, into those podium positions for the sprint race. Duncan up to P5 against Patterson, who had a very late join in, but is here nevertheless, and up to P6 for the Prema driver. And you can see Dale already up 1.1 seconds compared to the rest of the field. Big slide from one of the drivers in the backfield.
Got Daniel Gilligan
flag
off.
Deployed, and Daniel Gilligan off, as you mentioned.
Yeah, that was a really strange one. Just looked like he dropped it in the braking zone, locked the rear tyres, and once he did that, it was like pulling the handbrake on, so dropping down into 17th and last place. Surprisingly clean start. We thought the Senna S's were going to be a magnet for incidents, especially on the opening lap, but somehow we've managed to get through it all clean with Mr. Dale still out in front, a second clear of F1 Scott.
Mixture of compound allocation here. We have the soft and medium compounds, and as you can clearly see, we've gone to the medium compounds. Just once again starting lap 2 around the Senna S. As you can see, the McLaren-esque livery, you could say. It's not really. It's the MP Motorsport driver of Goshwish, currently in P4. Only 7/10 off B-Roy. 1.2 for B-Roy off P2 of F1 Scott, who had a fantastic getaway, making a move on turn 1 at lap 1. So fantastic getaway from him off the light. So great job from him. As we move further down, G-Watts is only 2/10 off Patterson at the moment. Prema needing to defend, going up in towards turn 7 and 8, and contact made.
Yes, there was contact between Duncan and F1 Alex. The Campos going into the back of the Van Amersfoort car and picking up a bit of damage for his troubles as well. We saw last season that people were able to deal with a little bit of front wing damage and able to make it work, if you will. But that's going to seriously hamper the driver that finished in the playoffs last season. But he's still all over the back of Duncan, trying to find any way past. He's lost a little bit of front downforce, but it certainly isn't dampening his spirits on the second lap.
Oh, Duncan still's got the inside line. Looks like F1 Alex is not going to back up without a fight, looking for any opportunity to make a decent advantage and momentum out of the exit of turn 12, making sure to get that throttle all the way down and just allow him to smoothly apply it through into the curb and continuing on from turn 14, and actually a small kink at turn 15 to start lap 4 of 14 here for the sprint race. You can see Duncan thinking about defending as hard as he can. F1 Alex down the inside, however, late on the brakes, rotating through, making sure to avoid contact on the outside line. Now you can see Duncan fighting back but can't get it done, and F1 Alex up to P7 in a moment's notice. You can see G-Watts as well now got DRS back on Patterson in P5. The Prema need to defend on the outside, doesn't have a choice with swerve too late. Now it's the Alpine liveried car down the inside. Looks like it's going to be Invicta Racing up to P5 in fantastic style with G-Watts once again on the attack and once again trying to show what he can do here for the second season of Formula 2 here in Creator Series.
Absolutely, some really nice moves there. G-Watts giving Patterson the old squeeze at the exit off to Desira de Largo, and then as well, I didn't think that was contact there, but maybe a bit of a lag bubble involved as F1 Alex and Patterson had a very weird reaction to the cars getting close to each other.
Oy.
F1 Alex with a lovely dart to the inside of turn number 1 to get past Duncan, even with that front wing damage, and will now set his sights on that Prema car.
Adam Sanderson to the trident of his teammate of Punju, P9 now. Will to action between Damien and Dragonflies in P12 and 11. The yellow flag deployed for Van Amersfoort of Daniel Gilligan. He's made a mistake at the exact same corner he made at last couple of laps. Unfortunately, that's P17, but with now a 10.5 second gap and increasing for the orange and black car.
Wow, really not ideal at all. Patterson under pressure once again, going to lose another place, dropping behind the Campos of F1 Alex. No front wing, but he's still got some very strong pace up into 6th place, but he goes too deep into the centre S, and that gives a perfect invitation for Patterson to swoop back around the outside and reclaim 6th place. But I think this battle is going to continue down the Retroposta and into turn 4 of Desira de Largo.
His teammate of Hoodie P up to P13, but continuing F1 Alex going into turn number 5, looking for it, doesn't go for it, but he actually decides to be patient with it, decides to almost tease an inside move. Patterson deciding I'm going to defend, and defended was the wrong decision to make. Unfortunately, Prema now down to P7, as looks like that is going to be trying to figure out Campos Racing up to P6. The logo so tiny on the timing sheets on the side of the screen, but now you have Punju up to P8. Trident also trying to bring themselves closer to making a move against Patterson. Patterson, as I mentioned, a late join in, so potentially not getting the same amount of practice as other drivers have on this circuit so far. Brazil obviously offering a lot of fantastic racing and offering some fantastic diverse opportunities for overtaking, and right now you can see Punju just fighting with the rear of the car, making sure he can get throttled down as quickly and as effectively as possible. Now out of the exit of turn 12 and 13, making sure once again to roll that car through, using the anti-roll bar to stop any type of further lean and stop any further G's from affecting how that car performs, and continuing on to the pit straight, looking for the inside line. Is he going to brake late? He is going to brake late. Down the inside goes Punju. P8 becomes P7 in a moment's notice. You can see Prema still trying to fight in, but nip and tuck through center S's is Punju up to P7, and a fantastic move that continues to push him forward.
Patterson now falling into a trident sandwich with Adam Sanderson sat just behind, looking for that final spot inside the points paying positions. Will this be the 3rd lap in a row that Patterson falls off the road at turn 4? It's actually Dragonfiles in the ART that was a little bit wobbly going through Desira de Largo. Adam Sanderson looking very racy behind Patterson, who taps the grass going up the hill on the run down into Ferradura turn 6. But we are still as we were. Punja will look to try and bolt and catch up to the slightly wounded Campos of F1 Alex in front.
Right now just on board with Patterson and P8 at the moment. He's got 2 drivers behind fighting well and truly hard with one another. It looks like it was Dragonflies hitting the rear diffuser, and Prema's gone wide, and Patterson into the barrier at the same place that we've seen Daniel Gilligan do it 2 times over. It's now done for the Prema driver, and almost maybe a difficult corner for these Formula 2 cars to get by. Whatever the case may be, this is a perfect opportunity for Daniel Gilligan to once again cut down some time and bring that Van Amersfoort car close. Once again kicking out the rear for Daniel Gilligan, and now you can see Prema off onto the grass on the side of the track, and now down to P17 goes Patterson. Daniel Gilligan finding an opportunity to make a move when amends were made, and now racing has really flipped on its head through the midfield.
Not a good start if you're in the Prema cars. Hoodie Pete just locked in some traffic down in 12th place, and then his teammate Patterson doing what Daniel Gilligan did, dipping a wheel onto the grass, and like we said earlier, like pulling the handbrake as he flipped it round and fell off the circuit. It inhibited Adam Sanderson a little bit because Dragonflies was very close going down the main straight, but as we put the commentator's curse on the ART drive, they pick up a 3-second penalty for going off at turn number 4, another corner that drivers are struggling to keep it within the white lines. But if this ART can try and get through these two Trident cars who don't look particularly quick at this stage, it could still be a couple of points picked up for Dragonflies.
Right now, speaking about Dragonflies, just trying to make a move potentially on Adam Sanderson, struggling on his rear out of the exit of turn 9, now approaching turn 10. Like I said, a good opportunity to make a move, but clearly also a good opportunity to make a mistake. You can see Dragonflies on the outside line, looking for a switchback, potentially can't get the throttle down in time, does get a little late on the throttle, just being patient with how quickly that car can kick out like a handbrake, and now continuing on out of the exit of turn 12 and 13. You can see Adam Sanderson getting a bit more momentum behind him, slipstream, and also with the use of DRS can get a nice toe on his teammate of Punju. Will Punju be a nice assistant to potentially make a move up to P7, or will it be a block in the road? Right now, braking early down to 5th gear, rotating through the center S. As you can see, Dragonflies bringing himself closer than ever before to the Trident cars, who are currently in P7 and 8. Mr. Dale also now 2.8 seconds ahead of the rest of the field, really starting to bring out that gap, continuing on with the battle down in the midfield. Yellow flag, 3rd sector though.
Yeah, I think it's Patterson having dramas once again in that final sector. Big moment for Adam Sanderson going through turn number 4, and that will give the ART of Dragonflies potentially a bit of an inkling to try and go up the inside into Ferradura, or maybe around the outside. We've seen Jenson Button pull off a brilliant move, and I think it was Esteban Gutierrez back in 2013, if that's correct. That's some knowledge for you there. But yeah, as we are going to have a look up the inside, a little bit of contact maybe on the inside as the ART swoops up the inside. Patterson's retired. Adam Sanderson runs out of road on the outside and falls out of the points-paying positions for the moment at least, because Dragonflies, let's not forget, has that 3-second time penalty looming over their head and will set off after Punju. Punju seemed to, on the previous lap, have a terrible run through Jung Shao, was over a second clear of his teammate, and then found himself with Adam Sanderson right on his gearbox.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see now the Red Bull delivery, what looks to be Dam's racing car in P10. It's actually F1 Damien, who's almost acting as a dark horse here in the lower midfield in P10, so he's not getting any points at this very moment.
Oh, sorry, I just want to cut in there because we're watching Ghostwish and G-Watts battling over 4th and 5th. Big dummy to the inside by the Invicta car to get up into a 4th place. Brilliant move to get up ahead of the MP Motorsport car. It was beautiful stuff from G-Watts, opportunistic, and getting up into the top 4.
Not done yet. You can see Hoodie Pete also fighting away with Duncan in P12. Looks like move was made against the Prema. Oh, sorry, VAR now losing position from the Prema. DRS is active against Hoodie Pete, with Duncan using that rear wing to bring himself closer again. But the downforce, at least on these specs of cars, obviously the new regulations of Formula 2 allowing for a bit more of closer racing. You could say it's the Formula 2 of the 2022 aero regulations, but whatever the case may be, not close enough to make a move on this occasion. You can see Dragonflies and P8 also trying to just catch up to the Trident of Punju, obviously making a move against Adam Sanderson, who's now down to P9. Punju and P7 having a close look at the gaps at the moment. Now you can see Goshwish in P5 trying to bring himself closer to G-Watts, unable to do so at this very moment. Still 5-10 seem to be the closest margin between every single one of these drivers. Can't seem to get the throttle down, and tyres would be struggling with how technically challenging this track can be.
Yeah, we're just over half race distance. Adam Sanderson, for the second corner in a row, gets a little bit wobbly under brakes, and that loses him a whole heap of time to the ART in front and could set him a little bit of a challenge to deal with the dams of F1 Damien behind. Punju, just want to comment on that first Trident car. Seems to be struggling a little bit for pace. That gap between himself and F1 Alex has grown over the last few laps. It's now over 3 seconds. Remember, the Campos has got a bit of front wing damage. I'm not sure if Punju does have any lack of downforce, but yeah, pace might be a little bit concerning in this early stage.
Dragonflies also has DRS against Punju at this very moment, but Punju 6.5, nearly 7/10 ahead of Dragonflies, so I'd only have to assume he's going to keep that position continuing into turn 3 at Curva del Sol, but it's seeming like it's a matter of time before Dragonflies does make that move, and realistically he needs to make moves quickly if he wants to try and keep position, well and truly nip and tuck for himself, because that penalty against his name will not help him in any case of the word. Looks like a 1 second penalty for Goswish sorry, my apologies, 1 second gap to Goswish. I was mixing up penalties and gaps, but my point being is he's continuing to lose out time to G-Watts, who's actually had a really consistent amount of laps at the moment, continuing to lap in the similar amount of range, one after the other, and it looks like Invicta Racing continuing to try and trail closer towards ART, but it's looking like it's going to be an uphill battle still.
Yeah, and we haven't spoken about the two leaders. We mentioned them before the race started. Dale, 3 seconds out in front, been very comfortable for the Campos driver, and F1 Scott in a little bit of no man's land as well. 5 seconds clear of B-Roy in third place. Dragonfiles getting ever close to the back of Punju, down the main straight to start lap number 10. Well, we see a look up the inside, has a little look over to the middle of the circuit, but decides to sit behind for the time being, going through the Senna S's. But I wonder, as we go through the Curve del Sol and up the Retroposta, will this be attempt number 2 for the ART to get up into 7th place? He's got a lot of work to do if they're going to pull that 3-second margin over Punju to maintain 7th place. But the pace at the moment looking fairly strong for the ART driver.
Yeah, it looks like Daz is also making a decent amount of progress against Jess Gamer in P13 in the high-tech GP car. However, not making enough to make a move at this very moment. 410 separating them, and does look like he's thinking about it, but no, stays out of it and continuing through out of the exit of turn 3. Looks like Goswish now picking up a 3-second time penalty. Looks like close margins between Dragonfiles and Punju. So now with Goswish with the penalty against his name, that's going to allow F1 Alex to boost him back into the limelight of the top 5 simply because of that penalty. Is pretty much taken contention out of the favor of Goswish and the team overall from MP Motorsport. I'm sure they'll be disappointed with that one overall. Looks like F1 Alex is bringing himself closer every single time he goes through a corner. At the same time, he's still seeming to lose out time. It's quite close and consistent between majority of these drivers, so nothing really changing at this moment. Punju in P7, 2.9 now, 3 seconds off F1 Alex at the moment. Dragonfiles now with DRS 4/10 off Punju in P7, still looming in the distance, but he's thinking about potentially making a move. And if we go just a bit further up from the field, you can see 410 separating G-Watts to B-Roy, and we've seen this before. G-Watts actually really starting to cut down some time here and potentially looking for those podium positions here in the sprint race.
Yeah, looking very comfortable in that Invicta car. Been surging through the field the last couple of laps. Got through Goswish with a beautiful move into the Senna S's. Now setting his sights on that final spot on the podium. 5.5 seconds, sorry. The gap between F1 Scott and B-Roy. Duncan with a penalty down in 12th. That won't affect their chance of picking up any points. Punju, though, continues to be under pressure from the group behind. Both of those Tridents seem to be a little bit wobbly on the rear end. The rear end instability is very, very poor for both drivers. We've seen them drifting around specific corners, mainly in that middle sector. And now Dragonfiles is as close as they've ever been to the back of that lead Trident car as they stay in that sandwich with Adam Sanderson sat just behind.
Yeah, something else to consider is that B-Roy's run wide twice now out of the next 2 corners at the exit of turn 13 and 14. There's a yellow flag for a grey car. Looks to most likely be Distinct Artemis, but will to action. DRS active for G-Watts and P4. He's looking for P3 on the grid, and it's going to be P3 at the moment. Podium position in contention for the Alpine liveried car. Now switching to the inside line to defend, but now a late braking move down the inside of turn 1 at the center. SS uses the curb too much, gets wriggled on the exit, and G-Watts up to P3 in a moment's notice. What a fantastic move.
Beautiful stuff. Textbook, if you like. B-Roy was so determined to try and win that place back. He probably thought this was going to be his only opportunity, sending it back up the inside into turn 1, but just got it a little bit too wrong, clattered into the curb and dropped back behind. And we've got
Adam
a battle for
Sanderson,
8th and 9th, though.
Outside.
Yes, Adam Sanderson trying to swing it around the outside into turn number 4 to see Delago. Didn't quite have the overspeed, but going to get a second by the cherry up the hill into Ferragiro. Going to try and go around the outside once again, but not given the space to try and swing it through. Will he try the cutback with these F2 cars going a little bit slow? You can maybe try that move, but unable to, and will stay in 9th place. But of course, that penalty will promote Adam Sanderson into 8th and get that final point for the sprint race.
Yeah, point I was exactly going to bring up just before. Adam Sanderson could relax a moment or touch, but I'm sure he wants to be able to make a position on track. Nevertheless, that, I guess, flex, you could say, that little brag of knowing that you made a move both on track and also had a penalty against the name just adds a sweet touch to the deal. But at the end of the day, if Adam Sanderson stays in P9 and makes a move, or technically digitally makes a move up to P8, then that would still count in his favor. But I'm sure the Trident would want more. 5-10 separating him now. Dragonfires with DRS against Punju. But as we go, B-Roy down the inside, actually on the outside line. G-Watts defending on the inside. And now you see the Alfa Romeo liveried car, ART, back up to P3. G-Watts isn't far off, though, using the momentum. Big slip on the rear from the curb. And now you can see a clear advantage from G Watts again. Uses the DRS towards turn 3. Going into Curva del Sol. Shuts the DRS. Braking late on there. You can see third gear. Downshifts now upshifting to fourth. Fifth and continuing forward. Back flat to the floor. Pedal to the metal on the penultimate lap of racing. The Alpine liveried car in Victor Racing trying to bring themselves closer. Can't get it done. Staying nice and close to the Alfa Romeo livery. B-Roy still trying his best to bring himself closer to making a much larger margin compared to P4, but P4 sticking to him like a magnet. He's got a rope attached to that rear diffuser and trying to keep it nice and close to the car so he can get another good opportunity. He runs wide, going into turn 10, now running wide, got a nice long running through. You could say medium pace corner running through. You can see Goswish isn't too far behind, but with a penalty against his name, pretty much takes him out of contention. Nevertheless, you can see out of the exit of turn 13, 14, and you can see he's just trying to get a bit more momentum on the exit of the corner, trying to use that throttle, trying to use what little torque the F2 cars have. Only 9,000 RPM in these cars, which is still faster than an LMP1 car by 5 seconds a lap. But right now, G-Watts rotating through, curb by curb, apex by apex, on the center S's of lap 14 to 14. He's going to try it again. DRS active. Good defending so far from B-Roy, but he's going to put it all on the line. He's going to risk it to potentially make a move for the podium positions. Down the inside, late on the brake. He covers off the apex though. G-Watts with no opening except now. Once again on the apex, running through on the curb. Wheel to wheel as they go back on the back straight. Continuing up. P3 as he goes around the outside. B-Roy has the momentum again. Uses the apex, runs through. Late on the brake, down just a third gear. 2,700 RPM as he continues back on throttle. G-Watts isn't done though. Still on the inside line. Looking for any potential opportunity. Can't get it done. B-Roy defending again. And Goswich down the inside for MP Motorsport. Slight contact made. G-Watts up to P4. Now it's F1 Alex up to P4. G-Watts falls down to P5. Goswich up to P5 now. G-Watts down to P6. A significant loss of time. B-Roy on the podium. Dale wins the race here in Brazil for the sprint race. F1's got P2. B-Roy will get that podium position. F1 Alex in a shock matter of moves in the final couple of corners. Up to P4. Goswish down to P7. G-Watts regains P5. But that is definitely not the way they wanted that to go.
Wow, we've got some talking points that we can assess and analyse in the little break we've got. Really good racing up until a point between G-Watts and B-Roy. Neither driver was going to die wandering. We saw that with the way they were charging into turns number 1 and 2 and also into turn 4. But in the end, G-Watts, the big loser, got dive bombed, if you will, by Go Swish. And that was really the straw that broke the camel's back as the MP Motorsport car dropped back, as did the Invicta F1 Alex, able to sneak through in the Campos car and get up into 4th place. Go Swish in the end dropping down between the two Trident cars in 6th and 7th.
And nothing going wrong for B-Roy and P3. What a fantastic defense and attack, both equally charging and defending with absolute precision. Was able to stay on the apex when needed to do so to stop any type of dive bomb. Realistically, these cars don't have the torque and power to almost make a switchback happen. Unless you run wide, unless there is some type of mistake, slip on the rear, getting overzealous on the throttle, whatever the case may be, unless there is a mistake of some sort, you're not going to find a switchback. It's always going to be a send down the inside because we have fantastic brakes on these cars. I believe Brembo is the one that uses those brakes, and I mean, you can see the performance well and truly, but yeah, sending it down the inside is normally the way to go and pretty clear in most cases. However, a bit messy on a few occasions on that final lap.
Moving further forward, though, we didn't talk about him a lot, but Dale, dominant out in front, and that was probably the best way he could have started his F2 campaign, winning by a comfortable margin in the end of just under 4 seconds. F1's got very competitive as well. We highlighted him before the race and certainly lived up to those expectations, ending up just 3.8 seconds back, nearly 10 seconds clear of the big duel that we saw right at the end of the race. It was B-Roy that took that final spot on the podium ahead of F1 Alex, who managed to sneak through ahead of G-Watts Punju. The pace wasn't quite there as he would have liked, but obviously got another few races to try and find it. Ghost was with that penalty being relegated behind the Trident, and then Adam Sanderson Rounding out our points paying positions, Dragonfire and Damien just inside the top 10, Hoodie Pete, Duncan, Up and Daz, and then Jess Gamer. Daniel Gilligan had a few adventures around the lap, as did Distinct Artemis. Patterson retired early on after a bit of a wobble in the same location. But that, I think, very, very exciting sprint race.
I think very successful, and I mean, kind of, I guess, allows that promotion of what F2 has to offer. Realistically, we knew Brazil is like I've mentioned this a few occasions now, but it's so diverse. There's a mixture of technicality and at the same time fantastic amounts of overtaking opportunities. Like I mentioned, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, the center S's, and then considering also the fact that you have turn 10 and 8. I mean, probably in the wrong order, but they both still serve the same purpose. You know, they allow for some fantastic opportunities for overtaking. And same for turn 13 when you run down through the, downhill amount of elevation, allowing for a bit more momentum. Rolling that car through allows you to brake late and get a good opportunity for an overtake. But yeah, no, Brazil has been something special, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And like we said previously, it is, in my opinion, it's the best track on the F1 calendar. It always delivers into Lagos, and even if it's not the season finale, which it should be, let's be honest, we always enjoy every time we go to Sao Paulo, and always delivers, and the sprint race certainly did. Next up, if you aren't familiar with the way that the F2 format works, we are going to have a one-shot qualifying session before we have our main feature race, which of course is a little bit longer than the sprint. One-shot qualifying, though, they don't do it too often, but when they do, it's very, very easy to get it wrong. And we could see, like we have done last season, a few big names find themselves in the middle of the pack.
Absolutely. And this is the great thing about one-shot qualifying. It takes that reverse order that you see in, obviously, the sprint race that we just had, and it gives the opportunity for drivers that maybe were low down on that grid to, you know, be in the top 3, top 5, pole position for all we know, and allows them to have that opportunity that they originally didn't have, and we can see a completely different result. However, Dale could. I'm sorry, I'm having a look at the carnage that's happening on my screen right now. I'm looking that's like a tsunami amount of debris. Anyway, no. My point being though, like when it comes to, I guess, one-shot qualifying and then the feature race, it can be completely different, or it can be very similar to how the sprint race played out. It really depends on how much of that driver's pace comes into fruition for it, because now you have the, obviously, OSQ and feature race. It's actually about the driver's pace more than anything else, because, you know, sprint race gives an opportunity for drivers who maybe not normally near the front of the field to be at the front of the field.
Most definitely. And well, from what we saw in the sprint race, overtaking certainly not an issue for a few drivers, and we saw some lovely battles, in particular with G-Watts and B-Roy, until that got a little bit messy, unfortunately, on the final lap. But strategy-wise, I guess we need to talk about that for the feature race coming up as we wait for everybody to get going again for one-shot qualifying. Tyre wear has never been too egregious around a circuit like this, but it is certainly something people will have to manage, and we saw the trend last season begin to swing a little bit in the second half of the season. People started off with the more traditional softer tyre to the harder tyre, depending on what circuit we were on. It could have been medium to hard, could have been soft to hard, soft to medium. What we then started to see, used brilliantly, I have to say, by our champion Unstopped Rob, starting on the harder compound, getting on to the soft compound later, and flying past everyone. I think that could be the meta for this season, if I could use such a word without having to take a shower afterwards.
It kind of explains his username, no? Unstop Rob. He was unstop. He found any opportunity to make a move, if that's strategy, if that's on track, and he used it perfectly towards his advantage. And I think, realistically, when it comes to strategy, I feel like Brazil is diverse in every single case of the word. On track, in the pits, just driver's pace overall. It really challenges people. It's not an easy track, but it's fun. It's, you know, it's what makes this track such a lovable thing for. It's a fan favorite, I think, is the best way of putting it, more than the way I'm putting it. But I think maybe I'm a bit more biased because I love going for an undercut strategy, but I feel like the better strategy would be an undercut. I feel like overall it's just the better thing to go for. However, we only have 20 laps, so realistically an undercut works because you have more grip, better. I mean, in my case, I watch a lot of endurance racing, so I'd say tread, but you'd have more rubber on those slick compound tires that it just allows you to stick to that tarmac better. It allows you to rotate through and get down the throttle quicker without losing the rear, or getting all wriggly when going into the entry or exit of a corner, right? It gives you that advantage. But when there's only 20 laps to prove that point of, I have the pace in these final 3 laps, for example, to re-overtake this person for the lead or P3 or whatever, because it's only 20 laps, it's much more of a minimal race for that to happen.
And we have to mention as well is mistakes punished usually a lot more severely in F2. We saw it, didn't we? Daniel Gilligan making the same mistake 2 laps on the trot, never managed to recover. Patterson in the Premier was looking fairly solid just outside the points, just dipping a wheel on that grass and ended up putting the handbrake and was entering the corner backwards. It's so difficult to keep these cars on the track all of the time, and if you do make a mistake, you're punished so harshly. And if there's no safety car, it's very difficult to get yourself back into it, so you've got to be careful of that as well.
Absolutely. And I did a little bit of a calculation. I went to time trial because obviously, as I've mentioned before, there's no information on Formula 2 Brazil because Formula 2 in real life has never raced around Sao Paulo, which still shocks me. But I went to time trial and I looked at all the drivers on this grid that I could find that has set down a time. And I added them all up and I found the average of it, which was a 17.927. Now, I will admit, it is time trial, so you get no tire dig, there's no fuel, and you don't have any battery, which you don't have in Formula 2 cars anyway, so that kind of cancels itself out. But my point being is we're going to be in the low 18s, like an 18.1, maybe an 18 flat, to the high 17s for qualifying. Is kind of the place we're kind of, I guess, shooting for.
I think what will be really interesting is to see how we compare to that average that you worked out, and we can try and see how different maybe time trial is to the real thing. Obviously, the pressure is going to be a lot higher in a one-shot qualifying session because if you get it wrong, you're starting right at the back, and there are going to be some big names, the likes of Dale, the likes of F1 Alex, the likes of F1 Scott, the likes of Punju, who, if they get it wrong, they're leaving themselves with a lot of work to do, and that is a big clean-up job if they want to get back to the podium places, which is where they should be challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned, Formula 2 cars are so challenging and they really can punish you quite severely if you do get something wrong. Like, perfect example, it's lap 1, and this plays perfectly in the role of Daniel Gilligan, but it's lap 1. We go into center S's in the normal way center S's work. Someone sends it down the inside, all of a sudden contact made, they get damaged, they need to come into the pit lane at the end of lap 1. All of a sudden they're 30-40 seconds down on the rest of the field. It's nearly impossible for them to come back unless there is a safety car.
Absolutely. Unforgiving, couldn't quite get the words out. Unforgiving and brutal nature of Formula 2. But that's why we love it so much. The unpredictability is probably even higher than we get in F1 just because the cars are so different to drive, so hard to drive, and some people struggle with controlling those cars as well, as we've seen a couple of occasions. Going into one-shot qualifying though, everybody watching, get your predictions in. Give us a top 3. Who do you think is going to be starting in those top 3 places? Jamie, I'll hand over to you. What do you think is going to happen?
Oh, I mean, domination on his side. No, it's fine. It's all good. Domination on his side. A pretty significant gap for the amount of laps that we had. It has to be Dale. To be honest, pole position has to be going in his favor. I mean, the confidence he showed in Discord when I was just having a little chat to him, and then just over when we have a look at how he drives that car on the circuit, it just feels like he knows the ins and out of that car, and he just understands every single corner and where to brake and where to apply that throttle and how much of a angle you need on the wheel, because obviously it's only 180 degrees, so it's a lot tighter compared to a lot of other motorsports which have wheels at 270 degrees, some at even 900 if we consider stuff like V8 supercars, which is more specific to me because I'm Australian, but that's more for an international global appeal if anyone else wants to know about that. But no, yeah, I think it's going to be Dale on pole, and I think maybe Punju up in the top 3.
Ooh. Yeah. I mean, the top 2 in the sprint race were a class above the rest of the field, it has to be said. So I would be surprised if F1 Scott and Dale aren't right up there. But Adam Sanderson ended the F2 season in season number 5 or season number 1 of F2 very, very strongly. I think he's got a good fight to be right up there challenging for a potential top 5 as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, no, absolutely. I think Adam Sanderson, you'd have to say, was kind of late to the front of the field, or at least more towards the top 5 of the field. But when he was actually able to put on a fantastic performance, he did exactly what he needed to do. And we actually are getting ready for OSQ here for Brazil. So let's go on board with one of the many drivers who continue to push their way around. And I'm trying to figure out.
I just want to jump in there quickly, because total coincidence jumped on board with the Prema of Hoodie Pete, who went straight off at turn number 1, and that's pretty much qualifying over already. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that Prema made a fantastic, well, no, not really fantastic, but a fantastic error that went horribly wrong. But my point being, Dale's actually down in P5, by the way. Campos not really getting the best of starts. However, I'm sure the margins are very close. If we actually go up to F1 Alex, his teammate, right now in P1, you can see the margins are extremely low at the moment. Just trying to find some timings, but I don't think we will get any at this moment. You can see Spro actually up to P2 for Invicta Racing. You can see B-Roy in the ART, and you're right, Dale's out. Dale has invalidated. He's down in P15. Same for Punju, same for Daniel Gilligan, and same for Daz as well. This is actually going to be a much different result than we originally expected. B-Roy P2, F1 Alex P1 in the Campos racing car. You can also see F1 Scott's now up to P2. I think he's really started to show his pace this season, specifically near the end of the F2 season. He started to show it as well, but he's not going to take P1. That's going to be F1 Alex, which in fantastic style, fair play to him, with an 18.698. Wow. And that gives you the difference between time trial and qualifying here. But pole position for F1 Alex, there's only going to be, 10 drivers who set down a time. From P11 to P18 or P17, my apologies, no one sets down a time. Big amount of invalidations here.
That was much more dramatic than I thought. We've technically only got 9 lap times because Hoodie Pete went off at turn number 1. 9 seconds off the pace isn't quite representative, but F1 Alex, half a second clear. Outstanding qualifying lap. F1 Scott on the front row, just 3 milliseconds ahead of Spro B-Roy, the only other driver within a second of F1 Alex. Then comes Dragon Files, Ghostwish, Damien, Patterson, and then Distinct Artemis. Dale, big name, starting towards the back, or in the mid-pack at least. Punju, big name, starting further back as well. Adam Sanderson brought him up. G-Watts had a really good sprint race as well. He's starting last.
Well, I mean, we'll have to keep an eye on him, because it's well and truly possible that he makes his way through the grid. And actually, I'd say P18 is a good position to be, simply because if there is any incident out on track, he can just easily divert his way around, At the same time, it's a terrible position, because if you do get a good getaway, which is still good, you could get caught up in the accident well and truly. But I want to have a quick talk about Punju. I predicted a top 3. He took the 3 literally and put 1 in front of it and got P13. So unfortunate for Punju. He did invalidate on his lap time, as did everyone from P11 down from that point. Obviously, Dale in P11. So that's going to be quite a fight back from the field. But formation lap not too far away. And oh boy, this is getting real exciting now. Brazil, like I've mentioned so many times, it's such a diverse track. It's so good at racing. And now we have the fact of this such different grid order that we were expecting simply because of invalidations. This is going to become a much different race than what we expected.
Absolutely. And talk about bump straight back down to earth for Dale. Dominated the sprint race thinking, this is going to be easy. I'm going to walk this championship, and then makes a bit of a blunder in qualifying and ends up starting in 11th place. Could be a lot worse, of course, but I'd actually say 11th is probably worse than 18th, because you are right in the thick of it.
Yeah, no, you are. Absolutely. And, I actually said this as well at the end of the sprint race when we kind of just summarizing certain things. When it comes to OSQ and when it comes to a feature race, you can get something so similar on the grid, or you can get such similar pace with every single one of these drivers, or you can get something completely different, completely inconsistent to what we saw in the sprint race. And it just kind of shows you what can happen in between both sessions. So yeah, F1 Alex on P1. So it is still Campos Racing who sets down that P1 time. Obviously it was Campos, obviously represented by Dale, now down in P11, but at least one side of the garage still being I guess a bit more on the pacey side of things. Obviously not completely Dale's fault, but he did invalidate by him crossing over that white line, so still somewhat his fault. You can see F1 Alex. So on the soft compound tires, like I've mentioned before, the tire allocation separated between softs and mediums. These are not F1, so it is only separated between obviously two tires and not compounds, mediums and softs alone. And actually I'm surprised by how many people went over to the softs. I mean, I guess there is a bit more of a uniqueness than what we see normally throughout the start of a season, so this could be quite an intriguing strategy. Overall, we've got an intriguing race because of where some people are starting. This is looking quite good now.
Yeah, and that tyre split, very, very interesting. 10 drivers on the softs, 8 on the medium. I mean, we both shared our opinions. We were slightly differing as well. I thought mediums were the best way to start. You probably thought the softs would go for that undercut. So, yeah. Everyone's undecided. We don't know what's going to happen. I think that's the beauty of what we're about to watch. But it is still Campos, like you said, on pole position. But it's a different one. F1 Alex picking up the mantle from his teammate who made a bit of a mess of one-shot qualifying and continuing to march on for the Spanish-owned team. But F1 Scott, once again, right in there as well. The pace wasn't there in qualifying, half a second down, but his race pace was still fairly strong. And he'll be hoping to challenge, at worst for a podium, but potentially try and beat this Campos for the second time.
Well, F1 Alex starting to line up as well. I mean, I did sprint race, so I think it's only fair that you do the feature race lights out.
Wow, it's been a pretty shocking start because nobody has... Oh, no. Punju, I thought we were getting through. No. I was about to say nobody's messed up the parking. We are getting ready to go, though I can't see the lights from where we are, so we're going to presume that 5 are still going to come on. As we wait. Tension building. And it is lights out and away we go. Terrible start for F1 Scott on the right-hand side of our screen. Looking like it's going to get jumped immediately by, I think that's Pro 8 coming up the inside. But it's F1 Alex who gets away clean 3 wide behind them. Where I think that's Pro 8 Dragonflies and B-Roy battling over 3rd, 4th and 5th. Got a car off in turn number 1. I think that is Pro 8 going off the road. But it is F1 Alex still leading us away. Punju's lost a couple of places, as has Adam Sanderson towards the back of the pack.
Can get a bit more of context to that. By the way, it was Broat who actually stayed on track. It was F1 Scott, so no, it was B-Roy who actually ran wide, which allowed Broat to make a move. Now you can see will-to-will action between Dragonfiles and Patterson. Patterson up to P5. Fantastic job so far from the Prema. More will-to-will action
big crash
between
in the
F1
back.
Damien and Dale, and contact made, as you mentioned. Punju down to P18, and now it goes bad to worse for Trident. Jess Gamer up to P17, and looks like a bit more contact just locking up so far, though, between turns A at the moment. This is not going well for the Trident car. As I mentioned, bad to worse, now going to horrific ways of racing, and now inside line. Looks like someone tried to send down the inside, went on the grass instead. Sproat up to P3 again, B-Roy down to P4, and action continuing to unfold here as racing continues to just... Oh, this is close, sorry. Will to action between Dale and Dragonfiles, P6 and 7, but backing out of it as they continue out of the exit of turn 13 and 14, but still just there. Oh, it's so close. F1 Alex, a 129.658, starting us off with one of the first fastest laps of this session. 3 wide, going down. Is it going to be potential move for Mr. Dale? No. Patterson, P5, but up to P6 goes Dale. Gets a good exit, potentially looking for the outside line against Patterson as they continue down into P3 at Curva del Sol.
Incredibly congested at the moment. Everybody starting pretty well, apart from Punju, went off like Sutil and truly did in 2009. Up the inside we go with Mr. Dale up into 5th place. Patterson dropping back down. We're going to try and fight it on the exit. And as we go up the hill into Ferragiro, the Campos and the Prema are going to continue to be side by side. But I think Patterson's backed out of that probably wisely. Dale, you would imagine, is going to be quicker at this stage. And Patterson not going to harm his race by fighting that one overly aggressively. F1 Scott.
Contact between Dragonfiles and Patterson. No actual damage actually left onto the circuit, but that was a big shunt straight into the rear of him. I'm surprised nothing did come upon it, but at the same point, now overtake made between Duncan for Van Amersfoort against what looks to be Hoodie Pete in the Prema. Back up to P10, sending that move down the inside, keeps them in contention. F1 Damien up to P9 at the moment. Goswish in P8, gets close to the rear diffuser of Dragonfiles. Not close enough to make contact, however. Back onto the pitch, straight out of the exit of turn 13 and 14, as we've mentioned. It does seem to still be working in the favor of Patterson, however, not really needing to defend too hard. And as we go back up to the top 3, those deficits are looking quite significant is a word to use. F1 Scott 2.6 seconds behind. Sproat 2.6 behind F1 Scott, and B-Roy is only 2.5 tenths off with DRS. This is almost a move in the making here, ladies and gentlemen, using that momentum out of the exit of Senna Cesses and now continuing into Curva del Sol, late on the brakes, outside line though, and as I mentioned, you don't get the power down as quickly as other, I guess, spec series do, and unfortunately B-Roy will have to stay in P4 and think about a potential other move as Mr. Dale down the inside from P11 already up to P4.
That one probably wasn't the cleanest move of the race so far from Dale, sending it up the inside of Ferragura. Just managed to catch it on board. A little bit of wheel banging between himself and B-Roy, who went too wide going into turn 4 to see it at Alago, dropping down into 5th place and now under pressure from Patterson behind. The top two have checked out. 3 seconds between F1 Alex and F1 Scott. Further 3 seconds back to Sproat. And then this huge train of cars. Mahusif, I think it covers pretty much the whole field unless you exclude Punju, who obviously, as we saw in the opening lap, going off into the grass. Not sure who he made contact with, but we'll have to find out later on. But I think Dale's going to be on the move again, getting up into the podium already on the start of lap number 4 this would be.
DRS active though, Mr. Dale looking for the podium positions. You can see Sproat needs to defend on the inside line. It won't matter on the outside. Wheel to wheel. Continue on late on the brakes. Downshift the 4th gear. Rotates through. Now down to 3rd. A bit late though, but still gets the pedal down and through out of the exit of turn 2. Out of the exit of the center S's and into P3. Dale's on the attack, but like no tomorrow. He is a man on a mission here at Sao Paulo. Brazil was opening it with open arms for him, and now all he has to do is stick it onto the track and show what he can do.
Yep, and the field's starting to spread out a little bit as well. Damien looks to be the cork in the bottle, 1.2 seconds off the back of this group of cars. We're looking at Ghost Swish just on the back of Dragonfiles. But, and I did want to mention this earlier, I believe the MP Motorsport car as we cut towards Ghost Swish has picked up a bit of damage. So maybe the contact we saw earlier, and there's a tap at the rear between the ART and the MP Motorsport car. It is Dragonfiles making contact with Ghost Swish for what I believe will be the second time, because the contact you mentioned, and I think it was lap 2, I think Ghost Swish may have been caught up with that as well, went into the back of the ART car and picked up some end plate damage.
Yeah, once again, Dale's made 8 positions since the start of this Grand Prix. Fantastic effort from him. Sproat's already separated by 1.1 seconds. So that's already starting to become more significant as time goes on. B-Roy's not too far behind. That rear diffuser looking very tasty in the favor of ART. And now with DRS, it's going to be another potential move going down the inside or now on the outside line, as it's going to be Sproat defending that inside line. Wheel to wheel all over again. This is a hot spot for overtaking, as I mentioned. Little late on the brakes. 2nd gear gets the throttle down. Bit wriggly on the rear. Wheel to wheel, but now starts to break apart. And Sproat down to P5 on the mediums. Same tyre for B-Roy, but it's B-Roy up to P4.
Dragonfiles potentially on the move as well. Little look at the inside of Patterson into turn number 4. Thinks better of it and will stay in 7th place for the time being. Patterson, who's struggled in the sprint race to get through turn number 4. Once again, a little bit wobbly on the exit and potentially set himself up to losing another place in this race. But Dragonfiles just a little bit too far back and will sit behind the Prema kart for the time being. Gap out in front, 4.3 seconds. Dale taking chunks of time meanwhile out of F1 Scott, using those soft compound tyres to his advantage. Then we've got B-Roy, who's managed to get ahead of Sproat, and then it's this queue of cars, Patterson, Dragonflies, Ghost Swish, and then Duncan a little bit further back.
You can see Sproat just currently P5, 5.5, now 6 tenths off B-Roy. That's continuing to just increase corner by corner, apex by apex, every single time they input that brake and throttle measure. And you can see B-Roy's really starting to show his pace, bit of a wriggle on the rear as well from Sproat, down to P5, goes Invictus Racing, and you could almost call that luck on his side. I mean, a lot of drivers did invalidate an OSQ, so maybe with the fact that we're under racing conditions, those soft compound tires is another thing to consider. I'm sure mediums have a lot more, I guess, rubber on them. The tire pressures are probably higher. It's probably working more in the favor for the soft compounds simply because they are soft. They're softer. It's literally the name of their tire compound. I think it's just going to work better in their favor for the next 2-3 laps before any real degradation starts to become more apparent here at Brazil. But at the moment, looks like it's starting to even out throughout the field. It's starting to cool down a little bit, but I wouldn't hold your horses for too long. The gaps are still quite close throughout the midfield.
Yeah, and first driver into the pits is Damien, getting rid of those soft compound tyres after just 5 laps. So maybe deciding those aren't the race tyres he want to goes on to. Patterson a little bit wide through Ferragura, potentially Dragonflies with an opportunity, but wasn't quite close enough. Got to be careful of the MP Motorsport car of Ghost Swish sat just behind as well as they go through turns 7, 8 and 9. They've dropped off the back of Sproat a little bit, who's been able to stack like glue to the back of the ART of B-Roy, who went a little bit wide. I don't know if you saw it going through turn 4 on the start of this lap. Lost a little bit of that margin that he had built up over the past couple of laps.
Yeah, right now you can see Sproat only 4/10 off B. Oh, it looked like it was going to go off the track there, B-Roy. He did run quite wide. He did lose the rear, getting a bit overzealous on the throttle. So it did allow Sprout to bring himself closer than ever before. DRS is now active as well, using that slipstream and toe towards turn 1 and towards the center S's to potentially think about a move, but still a bit too far back to potentially make one. You can see still throughout the field, gaps are getting close. Hoodie Pete only a 10th.5 off Duncan in P9. Van Amersfoort looking all over the show at the moment, and Kramer looking like in a prime position to potentially make a move. Pun intended. Yellow flag. Van Amersfoort, the teammate to him, Daniel Gilligan, in the barrier. Doesn't look like there's any damage at all. Looks like the end plate's in full, yeah, okay for him, but he's down in P17, and once again, a bad race for him in the favor of this second season of Formula 2. Technically, not the second season of Creator Series, but here specifically in F2, it's going to be Hoodie P inside line, potentially going into turn 8, but having to back out of it.
Duncan was very wide through
and Daz as well. Have a look at Daz and P11. Oh, he's going to think about it. Dam's racing. Inside line, he's going to force a move against Prema. Clearly, Prema taking too long. Doesn't have the patience to wait. And fair enough towards the Dam's racing car. Now Prema back up to P10. He's starting to force a move back on him. Now we're starting to see a bit more of an aggressive fighting style between some of these drivers. They know they need to start pushing their limits. They need to show what they can do. Nip and tuck in every single one of these corners. Put down that throttle and push your absolute heart out to make sure you can get the best result possible. G-Watts P12. Adam Sanderson also has a good slipstream and toe, but it's G-Watts into the pit lane.
Yeah, I was going to say the Trident looked like he was going to be on the proud. G-Watts was very close to the back of Up and Downs, but lost a little bit in that final sector and decided to peel off into the pits for a little bit of an undercut. Adam Sanderson actually goes a little bit wide into turn number 1 and won't be close enough to potentially make a move. Further forward, Patterson still with the ART just behind. Ghostwish has dropped a little bit off the back of that train, and everybody slightly more equidistant, you could say. So it is as Ghostwish falls off the racetrack going through turn number 4. It is that battle between Duncan and Hoodie Pete and Up and Downs that you would imagine is going to continue for the next couple of laps. But Adam Sanderson very close to the back of the Dams car.
Yeah, absolutely. You can also have Dragonfiles in P7 thinking about potentially making a move against Patterson in P6 at this very moment, looking for the outside line, now looking for the inside. He thought about sneaking it in, but defended well by the Prema car in P6 at this very moment. Continuing back down, 4.5 tenths is Hoodie Pete to Duncan and P9 for Van Amersfoort, but right now it's not looking close enough for any moves to be made. Duncan running wide, however, and Hoodie Pete looking for it, can't get it done, and looks like Dragonfiles is only 2 tenths off now with the DRS, and also a terrible exit from the Prema. Perfect opportunity for Dragonfiles and for ART to make it all stick and count on the board here. DRS active, and they're both coming into the pit lane. Okay, potentially could have been a move also to overtake, but you need to be careful. It's only 60 kilometers as your pit limiter. Don't want to speed in and pick up a 5-second time penalty, which neither of them do. Adam Sanderson up to P9, and more overtakes being made due to people coming into the pit lane. A little bit of information on these Formula 2 cars, by the way, more specifically the engine specs between 2018 and 2023, because they've stayed the same. We use Dallara chassis for these things, and also the sound is impeccable, using 3.4 litre DOHC V6 engines, and considering the fact that they have a gearbox that's a 6-speed sequential paddle shifter. Fantastic cars, and they only weigh 720 kilos, now 755 after the 2018 regulations that we see to the present day, with a power output of roughly 620 horsepower, which is roughly 462 kilowatts.
Oh yes, they are very good cars to drive. Distinct Artemis, though, is struggling a little bit as that is a big slide going into turn number 8. And Punji says, thank you very much to get up into 11th place, getting past the high-tech car. A little bit of a race update we saw on that previous lap, Patterson and Dragonflies into the pits. Dale also coming in from 3rd place to get on those medium compound tyres. I wonder if the likes of F1 Scott and maybe F1 Alex will try and retaliate and cover off that move from the Campos driver.
Yes, Daz and P8 did think about potentially making a move out of the exit of turn 8 and going down through turn 9 and 10. Couldn't get it done, and now following through with Hoodie P into the pit lane. And all these drivers need to brake quite quickly because that pit limits line is actually quite early on the circuit compared to a lot of other pit lanes. You can see people on those medium compound tyres not too far off people who are coming into the pit lanes. However, I do doubt an undercut will take place. We'll have to wait and see how likely that will happen. I mean, pit stops are quite long here in Formula 2, so you can see Patterson on fresh new mediums starting to make their way through some of the field, and it will actually be, for majority of the people who came into the pit lane, a very easy undercut for majority of these drivers. And now it does seem like Sproat in P4 is the only real close driver in terms of deficit and gap in the entire grid at the moment. It looks like GWAT's only 4.5 tenths off, and some of the people exiting the pit lane.
Duncan spat out into the pits, right into the path there of GWAT's, dropping down into 15th of Van Alsop coming out of the pits. Patterson picks up a 3-second corner cutting penalty. That's the first of the race so far. Surprised. It's taken 10 laps for us to see that message in the top of our screen. But yeah, the undercut, like you were saying, is very powerful. We've seen these guys pull out a decent margin. Patterson and Dragonflies are comfortably now ahead of the likes of Ghostwish and GWAT's. F1 Alex, the race leader, into the box.
Yes, this is where we get to see how this undercut strategy starts to play. I'm currently on board with Dale, who's in P10. He's the closest driver compared to anyone else who's done an undercut strategy. And now we get to see straight on board here. I mean, Alex is on those mediums now, and you can see that dot moving on the track map. Dale isn't going to make it in time, and I believe an undercut has worked perfectly in the favor right for F1 Alex. And if he can get out of that very long pit exit, I guess, road, you could say, then it's going to be Dale with a, I guess, unfortunate mishap on the undercut strategy. And unfortunately, I think it is going to be P9 for him. F1 Alex is practically out of the pit lane, which he is now. P7 is where he now stands, but ahead of any other driver who's currently come into the pit lane. This has worked perfectly in the favor of F1 Alex. And as I mentioned, the overcut is so strong at a place like this. No wonder he's well and truly ahead of anyone else who's come into the pit lane.
Provisional race leader coming out just behind the two high-tech cars will look to chase after the 5th and 6th place drivers. The battle between Patterson and Dragonflies is going to continue to rage on through the middle sector. Little look maybe up the inside into Ferradura, but Dragonflies thinks better of it and will stay in 11th place for the time. But he doesn't have to make this move, of course, courtesy of the penalty hanging over Patterson's head. But we'll probably like to get ahead on the road rather than relying on that penalty. F1 Scott covers off the move on the previous lap for the pit stop from F1 Alex. Forgot where the driver was there, and B-Roy follows in as well.
Well, F1 Alex, currently on that overcut strategy, has made it stick and count. And right now, with his placement on that circuit, there's going to be no doubt in anyone's mind that he's going to undercut the living heck out of anyone else who's coming into the pit lane. F1 Scott and B-Roy will be undercut by Distinct Artemis and F1 Alex. TTV and Distinct actually not coming to the pit lane yet, but it is F1 Alex who now undercuts using his overcut strategy, which is a bit confusing, I know, but he has been able to do so and up to P5 and only 8 tenths, now 5 tenths and 6 tenths is continuing to go up and down, differentiating as they go into turn 3 at Curva del Sol, and F1 Alex well and truly on the attack to try and regain that P1 position. Dale in P6 on 3-lap old mediums. Now it's going to be a real challenge for him because 2-lap old 2-lap older medium compound tires compared to F1 Alex. Now we get to see if Dale is more competitive than him in an exact moment of time at the moment.
We've had some really good races between Dragonflies and Patterson. The ART finally getting up ahead of the Prema car into 9th place on the road. Patterson unable to hold on to that down into turn number 1. What's interesting, F1 Scott coming out behind the Campos of Dale, but on much fresher and softer compound of tyres. So I'd imagine that F1 Scott gets past Dale in a matter of corners, you would imagine, with the DRS open. Spro 8, provisional race leader into the box. That will release Adam Sanderson, who's got up into 2nd place ahead of those two high-tech cars. And then F1 Alex rounding out our top 5 positions on lap number 13.
I'd be shouting and screaming to the world. However, I do believe this is in nobody's doubt in mind that F1 Alex will be making a move against Distinct Artemis, looking for the move down the inside, late on the brakes, downshifts to 3rd gear, thinking about 2nd, and does go down to 2nd. And no matter the defense that was put on against Distinct Artemis, it doesn't matter. F1 Alex up to P2 in a moment's notice, nip and tuck through the center S's, and now approaching Curva del Sol at P3, at turn 3, my apologies. Jess Gamer is the only one left to overtake before once again re-overtaking for P1.
F1 Scott and Dale are about to go into combat over what is 4th and 5th on the road, but is provisionally 2nd and 3rd net it's going to be very interesting to see how quickly that Scott can get past Dale. They both slid through turn number 2, the Curve del Sol, in sympathy of each other. As we see the second 3-second penalty of the race picked up by Go Swish, F1 Scott, sorry, all over the back of that Campos car. You're thinking it's only going to be a matter of time. Dale, if he can try and catch up to Artemis in front, maybe use a bit of DRS to help him hold on to that position for an extra lap, but the gap is 2.2 seconds. I think he might be having to roll the red carpet out for Scott on those red striped soft compound tyres.
Absolutely. Last lap actually between these two in P4 and 5 we can see is actually a 121.336 for Dale, a 142.754 simply because of the fact that F1 Scott came into the pit lane. So we'll wait another lap or two to actually get a bit more of a distinct time between the two. But let's actually go on board with F1 Scott. Got DRS looking for a move, got the slipstream in tow and much fresher tyres. Looks for the outside line. He is going to send it down the inside or down around the outside. My apologies. Lay on the brakes. Third gear. Once again applies throttle, but I don't think it's going to come to anything, not at this very moment. Fruition just kind of acting more as a background point at this point, but F1 Scott now with DRS again. I don't think anything's going to happen at this very moment, but he is starting to close down that gap significantly every single corner they go around. And now I'll tell you the last lap between these two is it's now going to be Dale going wheel to wheel between Distinct Artemis. Those 13-lap-old mediums will only actually help F1 Scott by getting by, but now acting as a perfect barricade. F1 Scott can't get by him, sticks on the inside line, which is exactly where Distinct Artemis was. So now losing out time on those 2-lap-old soft compound tires, rotates on the outside line, once again approaches with flat to the floor on the throttle, but now approaching into turn 10 and out of the exit of turn 10, he's 8.5 tenths down on Dale.
But most importantly, has held on to that DRS as we are going to go over the detection line in just a matter of moments. Worked out beautifully for Dale, picked up some DRS down the retroposter and then got past the high-tech pretty quickly and managed to put a little bit of a gap between himself and F1 Scott. This is now on the road, the battle for second and third place. F1 Scott obviously not close enough at the moment to get through, but you would imagine he will in a matter of laps. Into the pits comes Artemis, final driver yet to make a stop in this race. We'll join probably around where her teammate is. Jess Gamer down in 17th, came out of the pits on those soft compound tyres. B-Roy, 4 seconds off the back of this pair, and then it is Dragonflies head of Spirit, squabbling over 5th and 6th.
Yeah, right now you can see F1 Scott P3 using the DRS to bring himself closer than ever before. B-Roy on the 3-lap-old soft compound tyres, but 3.7 seconds down now, 3.8. Deficit still too high for anything to really be coming off fruition between those two. Right now it's between F1 Scott and Mr. Dale J.E. And right now, what we can say between these two, I mean, Dale has shown complete and utter domination in that sprint race. I mean, his pace overall in this race has been fantastic, especially on that first stint throughout the feature race. He was able to make his way through the field from P11 to P4 in pretty much 2 laps time, I was pretty sure, maybe 3 laps. And F1 Scott, however, using those soft compound tires, the better strategy, used the later pit stop to switch over to the soft compound tires. There are 5 laps, technically 6, and F1 Scott just needs to put it all together, and now he'll have a perfect opportunity. Uses the slipstream in tow, will have the DRS. He's going to put everything back on the market to potentially go up to P2. Dale only has to defend, but it's going to be down the inside. Purple lap 127.74. Down the inside goes F1 Scott. Outside line as he goes into turn 2, but it's no use. F1 Scott up to P2. What fantastic racing, and it seems like no challenge at all, but it's not done yet. Dale has DRS again, wheel to wheel, and down the inside, lay on the brake, rotates through on the apex. Now it's going to be F1 Scott coming back at him. Dale's still there though. P2 on the inside line, continuing wheel to wheel, whipping wheel to wheel, going into turn 1, and now we're going into turn 6, continuing through on the apex of the corner, halfway on the throttle before once again going flat before breaking down to second gear. Mr. Dale J.E. only in P3, and in a moment's notice could be up to P2. He needs to be nip and tuck and more technically advanced than any other driver on this circuit. For some reason, the fastest lap is a 13.940 on my screen. It's not 13 seconds, so I'm sure that will fix at some point, but it is Hoodie Pete. And now Mr. Dale J.E. is 6.5 tenths off F1 Scott, and right now F1 Scott has the opportunity to pull away like no tomorrow, and is well and truly doing that. 9 tenths.
What a lap, we have to say it first. What a lap from the Prema of Hoodie Pete, as it's actually eclipsed there by F1 Out. We sorted out in the end, but 13.9 seconds. Beautiful lap there. B-Roy has closed up a little bit on this pair, but I am amazed they didn't make contact. An extra layer of rubber on the outside of the tyre, and I think Dale could have been facing the wrong way going through the Curve of Del Sol, but now F1's got starting to escape off into the distance, and Dale could be left to have to try and hold on to that final spot on the podium.
Oh, Punju looking down the inside, late on the brakes.
Yes.
Trident looking for the move. P12 in a moment's notice now. And now Up and Ads is now down to P13. And it's going to be even worse for Dams Racing. P13 and 14 collectively on 7-lap-old mediums and 11-lap-old mediums compared to 6-lap-old soft compound tires. And it's clear that the people on the late soft compound strategy working well and truly in their favor. An undercut turned overcut, well and truly looking like the advantage on circuit at the moment. Sao Paulo has turned up the heat for round 1 for Formula 2, and it really is something special at this circuit.
Yeehaw, down the inside, going Punju, very late on the brakes, and it was perfectly executed, I have to say, to get up into 12th place, recovering nicely from that first lap. Instant bit of a wobble there coming through turn number 9. Third penalty of the race this time. It is Daniel Gilligan as Up and Daz gets very close to the back of the Trident. Going through turn number 10 and up towards Magulio. This Adam Sanderson.
And right now, yeah, it is Adam Sanderson in the Trident 4-lap old soft compound tires. Had a fantastic run through out of turn 13. Has the DRS and you will use that slipstream and toe inside line and will hug the white line all the way through on the pit straight across the timing line to start lap 18 specifically for himself. Down the inside, late on the brakes. Maybe not as late as Duncan though. Looks for any type of recuperation going through turn 2. But it's Adam Sanderson up to P10.
Beautiful stuff. The Tridents both on the move, picking up a place in the space of a lap. Got to talk about Dale, though, in third place, falling very quickly into the clutches of not just B-Roy, but Sproat as well. And Dale might find himself not just falling off the podium, but falling down into 5th place. The gap between 5th and 6th Dragonflies is now 5 seconds back, so those mediums definitely not working as well as the softs at this stage. And then it is Patterson and Go Swish battling over 7th and 8th. G-Watts just behind them as well. And then it is Adam Sanderson getting up into the top 10 with that move, down into turn number 1.
And right now, P8 of Goswish, just looking to go late on the brakes, second gear rotating through, back on throttle now, and just starting to lean into the corner a bit more. Goswish clearly looking for an opportunity to make a move. Late on the brakes, like contact to the rear diffuser. Patterson all out of shape, but regained control in a moment's notice, and Goswish really trying to push a move, force a move, you could say, against Patterson at the moment. Patterson, as we mentioned, a well and truly late rejoin to this race. Obviously checked in quite late. It's going to be down the inside for Goswish. Up to P7 in a... not yet, though. And Prema way too late, but he's looking for the switchback of dreams. And it is going to be a dream come true for Prema. Looks for it, but can't get it done. Nail in the coffin yet to be hammered. And right now, Prema on the outside line. He has DRS. He's sending it down right through, rotates. And what a fantastic move. P7 re-overtaken by Patterson.
Neither driver willing to back down, and in the end, Patterson holding on to that 7th place with the old switcheroo going through to Desira de Largo. G-Watts, a perfect spectator, sat behind them in 9th place, watching another brilliant fight between two drivers scrapping over some big points-paying positions. Add in front, Dale, only 1.1 ahead of B-Roy now, going on to the last lap. I think the Campos could be under a little bit of pressure with Sproat going with them as well. They've dropped Dragonflies by 2 seconds on the previous lap, and then it's this trio continuing to squabble over 7th, 8th and 9th, which will continue onto the final couple of laps. You would imagine F1 Alex out in front. It has been pretty dominant for the Campos driver. He starts the final lap of the race, nearly 5 seconds clear. Patterson a little bit wide going through Jingxiao, and that could potentially set him up for another position battle between himself and Go Swish.
Right now you can see G-Watts down P9 as well. He's going to have a really good opportunity to make 2 positions because of penalties. 2.5 tenths though. It's another move looking towards Goswish on the outside line. Laying the brakes. Now downshifts to 5th, 4th, eventually 3rd. Way too late. Going onto the Rolex runoff. G-Watts up to P8 in a moment's notice. Now using nip and tuck, staying on the inside of the curb. Running out towards the outside line to make the maximum of it. DRS, 6th gear, making it to the final gear before breaking down a 3rd most likely, does eventually reach it before 8th in position, looking for 7th on lap 20 of 20. I'll give you a little statistic, by the way. F1 Scott, 122.0. It's a bit different, but as F1 Alex with a 121.917. So even though he's on 9-lap-old mediums, still quicker than anyone else on the track, and he's been quicker than anyone else could even imagine to be. We all thought coming into the feature race, it was going to be the one and only. It was going to be his teammate. And now we'll finish in P3, but it's actually going to be F1 Alex who comes across the timing line to win the Brazilian Grand Prix feature race. F1 Scott P2 crashes into the barrier in a nice weird celebration of sorts. His teammate did finish P3, which we will. To be honest, I was searching for his name to find his position, which is where there was a bit of a space in between my commentary, but still fantastic result to come back in P3. I thought he was lower down, so fantastic effort from him on 12-lap-old medium compounds, but it doesn't matter. His teammate F1 Alex made it better out of this race, had more consistency, started on P1, ends in P1, had a fantastic strategy, and though was challenged by F1 Scott in a few laps of racing due to that delta, it meant nothing by the end of it.
What a way to win. It was really interesting to see the dynamic at the end. We thought we were going to see it with the tyre strategies. We certainly did. Dale picks up driver of the day. Probably justified, although F1 Alex has to have a big shout out because that was a dominant performance to take the victory in the feature race. We'll see the podium celebrations just in a moment's time, and then we'll look at the final order. We saw a couple of drag races up to the line as well, notably Adam Sanson almost getting up to 9th, but ending up in 8th courtesy of penalties for some of the drivers around the track. So a decent handful of points for Mr. Devon Butler. Hopefully this does load. A little bit difficult. There we go. Patterson leaves the session. But it is F1 Alex your winner and the two Campos cars 1st and 3rd. If the Constructors' Championship was a thing, beautiful for the Spanish-owned team. If we look at the final results, it was F1 Alex from F1 Scott and then Mr. Dale. Decent start for Dale. Sprint victory. Solid comeback in the feature race to take a podium. B-Roy just missing out on the line with Spirit getting the fastest lap of the race, not the 13.9 second lap we saw from, I think it was Hoodie Pete earlier on. Dragonflies, fairly solid start as well in no man's land at the end, you have to say. G-Watts was disappointed to lose a couple of places late on in the sprint. Fought back nicely from last on the grid to finish 7th. Adam Sanderson, similarly on the back row, 17th on the grid, finishing in 8th. And Ghostwish and Patterson with their penalties being bumped down a couple of places. Duncan Punju, disappointing start for Punju. Didn't quite get it done in the sprint race and then having to recover from a first lap accident, ending up in 12th. Up and down's Jess Gamer, F1 Damien, Hoodie Pete, Daniel Gilligan and Distinct Artemis. Your final running order for the season opener, the curtain raiser, and it was a very exciting race.
Oh yes, they put on some theatrics is probably a word you could use, but no, what a fantastic way to start season 2 of Formula 2 here in Creator Series. And I mean, wow, what a way to open it up. I mean, yeah, theatrics is the word to use realistically. I mean, the drama out on track, some collisions, some mistakes. I mean, Daniel Gilligan could probably be the limelight of that entire area, the subject matter of that. But no, I mean, for Campos Racing, it's a win-win situation. In the Constructors, they'll be absolutely loving life. They had P1 in the sprint race. They took the win in the sprint race. They had P1 from OSQ and then P1 in the feature race. They took P1 in literally everything they could possibly wipe out. Campos is literally men on a mission realistically, and showing it well and truly, and fantastic effort from them to start us off here as the season opener in Brazil, which is just such a fantastic track. And I'm so glad we got to start at a circuit like this, because I mean, yeah, we saw some of the technical racing that took place. I mean, specifically, as I mentioned, turn 8 and 10. It's so easy to make mistakes, just lose the rear or get a bit too overzealous on throttle, or, cut too much of a certain corner and pick up a penalty. We saw specifically that with Daniel Gilligan on 2 occasions. I think it was turn 10. He got a bit too overzealous on throttle and saw himself end up in the barrier pretty much in the entry of turn 10, pointing towards the exit, but never made it.
Absolutely. The curtain was raised, and I think Act 1 of our slightly shorter F2 season certainly didn't disappoint. Like you said, Brazil always produces brilliant racing, and no exception today. Saw some fantastic battles, and we saw some people staking their claim to why they should be in those playoff places and trying to take home the crown at the end of the season of F2 champion. Brilliant start for Dale, exactly what he would have wanted. F1 Scott looking very competitive as well. F1 Alex trying to build on what was a very successful season last time out, got in the playoffs, didn't manage to go up in the end. We'll be trying to go one better this season. Then a couple of surprises in there as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, to be fair, F1 Scott, what a race from him. He didn't have the best qualifying, did he? But he had a fantastic feature race comeback of sorts. He finished in P2, and a man who actually co-commentated with me for my debut here in Creator Series. I mean, he is a lovely person to chat to, and we will have the opportunity to have a little chat with him as well. Yeah, I mean, what a race from him. He showed a lot of to be honest, I believe he's probably the most consistent driver on this grid so far. I mean, yes, we saw, Dale, and we also saw Alex both finishing in P1, but I think overall, when he was given that opportunity on the correct tire at the correct time, he showed fantastic consistency, more than any other driver could.
Yeah, the pace, consistency, I think is key in these cars, because they are so unpredictable at times and so difficult to drive. If you can be consistent, you're going to be towards the top end, of course. Shall we do some interviews? Shall we talk to a couple of our drivers, see what their thoughts on the opening round of the season were? We've got a couple of people in the interview waiting room. Is there anyone you'd like to talk to first, Jake?
I think we should just go in order. P3, 2, 1, as it's usually done. But to be honest, I'm willing to talk to every single one of them, because I think, but all of their races, boring or not, I think all of them kind of have a story to tell, and I think this should be an exciting one to have a little talk to, because Brazil was, I think, unpredictable in a lot of ways, especially from OSQ going into the feature race. Remember, we had from P11 down to P18, no one set down a time. It was only the top 10 that could. So, and technically top 9, as you mentioned, because technically Hoodie Pete, went wide on turn 1, and the only reason he even started P10 was simply because he didn't invalidate.
Absolutely. So, should we get Dale in to have a discussion with third place finisher in the feature race, but of course Dale on his debut in the F2 season won in the sprint race. Dale, hello. Came into the season with maybe a bit of a chip on your shoulder, trying to prove a few people wrong. I think that was potentially the best start that you could have got.
Yes, let's go.
Okay.
Are we still there, Dale?
I can't hear anything. Oh, it was amazing. I can't hear anything in the Discord.
Oh.
How is everyone doing? It was an amazing race. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The P1 in the sprint, I gave it everything I possibly could in the feature race as well. It wasn't there. We had a couple of people holding us up, lost a few seconds on the pit stop, still managed to undercut Scott by a couple of seconds to hold him up to keep our teammate in P1 though. So overall, massive weekend for Campos, walking away on drawn points with Scott, if my maths is correct.
Well, how enjoyable was
the
sprint?
Amazing.
How enjoyable was the sprint? Because
it was incredible.
Absolutely dominated it.
Honestly, the pressure was on, man. Like it was me versus me. So I only had myself to lose the race in the sprint. I knew I had the pace coming into the race, and I gave it everything. It was incredible. Yeah, nerves were in. Brake foot was getting a little bit jittery. Everyone gets it sometimes, but after a few laps, we was dialed in. We was ready for it, and we was ready for the victory.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I had a little chat with you, just a little general one, in the F2 cooldown room, and you seem to have a lot of confidence coming into this, I guess, Grand Prix overall, and clearly shown. But OSQ, you did invalidate. Kind of walk me through that. Where exactly did you do so?
So I invalidated the lap. I believe it was just at the end of sector 2, coming through turn 8. I believe it's the right-hander. Just cut way too much of the inside apex, invalidated straight away. And then it was a fight back from P15. Luckily, there was a little bit of carnage in front. I'm not going to lie, shout-outs to pretty much every single person on the grid. They really didn't fight most of the battle. But yeah, let me through pretty easily to try and fight to the front again. So I've got to give everyone else a shout-out as well. But yeah, amazing.
Not the shout out I was expecting, I must admit, but no, fair play. I mean, yeah, like, as you mentioned, a fantastic fight back through the grid. I mean, fantastic overtakes as well. A few switchbacks here and there, especially through center S's. But I mean, what was kind of going through your mind? Obviously, you started quite low down on the grid, and I'm sure your mind was kind of racing at that point. There's a lot
Yeah.
of adrenaline pumping through, but you would have been aiming for a podium, potentially in some type of world, potentially a win. But
Yeah.
I guess, like, how were you kind of approaching this race? Was it to be cautious? Was it just go, 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 attack as hard as you can?
So it was sort of the mind didn't want to, the hands didn't want to do what the mind had planned. So going into the race, obviously I was like, I'm going to be patient, do this, do that. But I'm not going to lie, elbows and knees came out the second those red lights went out. I was sending as many moves as possible to get us through that grid because I knew letting those guys get away at the front would have been the race went out the window if we wanted to go for it. But we still managed to secure the podium. Yeah, it was great going through it. But yeah, clean racing. I did get the elbows out. There was some questionable moves, but nonetheless kept it on the track and yeah, secured the podium.
Absolutely. This is also fantastic constructors points for Campos, as you've also mentioned just before. I mean, you took the win in the sprint, and your teammate taking the win in the feature. I mean, how does that feel for Campos to pretty much wipe out the entire P1?
Honestly, it feels amazing because while everyone else has been playing checkers, me and Alex have been playing chess. We've been practicing day in, day out, every night, getting that team dynamic ready to dominate the season, and it showed in today's racing. So, you know, everyone just weren't ready for it.
Well, what about Japan? Because that's next up, round 2 on the 6th of April. Walk me through your confidence for that, because there was a lot of confidence on both on track and off track. But what about Japan? Suzuka, once again, a technically challenging but also quite a diverse circuit. What's your confidence going into it?
In F1 I'm not gonna lie, it is one of my stronger tracks, but again, F2 it's a completely different beast, completely different car. You haven't got that downforce to trust through sector 1 to carry you through the S's like you would in the F1 cars. I'm nervous again. It's going to take just as much practice as it did this week, but we're aiming for exactly the same result next week.
I do just want to ask quickly as well, how have you dealt with that adaptation and that transition from F1 to F2?
I'm not gonna lie, it's very difficult. We wasn't the fastest person in F1. I'm not gonna lie, we did used to use ABS as an assist. I've turned that off moving into the F2 because they are much faster, these F2 cars, without the ABS. Being able to get that rear end drifting around the corners does gain astronomical amounts of time. But yeah, I've got to head into the F1 race now, so I'm not feeling too confident.
Well, we will wish you the best.
They're different.
Yeah.
But thank you guys. You guys did an incredible job on the comms, and it's good to have you, Tom and Jamie. Smashed it.
Appreciate
Well, thank you for talking to us. Yeah, and we will wish you the best of luck for F1 in a few minutes' time, and then the rest of the F2 season.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a good evening. Peace.
You too. What a character.
Wow.
We all love Dale, don't we?
Yeah, I know. Full of energy.
Especially the
first time I've spoken to him. So that is when he came in, I was like,
yes.
whoa.
I think there are a few connection issues, but we all love a laugh at the end of the day. It was a nice, funny moment for us to enjoy. Next up, second place, a pair of second place, in fact, for F1 Scott transitioning from the commentary box to the race seat. And I'm sure Scott will be very, very pleased with his efforts. Hello, Scott. Just sum up the race for you. A very, very commendable start.
That was great, right? Commentators can race too. That's all I'm here to say. Is that commentators can race too, and I'm representing us all.
Well, the pace was extremely, extremely strong. So consistent. Jamie was saying it a lot in the race. Your lap times were very, very pinpoint accurate. How did you manage to get that consistency going? Was it literally just practice, or were you just feeling especially comfortable at this configuration circuit?
I practiced. That was the official answer. I have a joke answer, but I'll keep that to myself. I don't want to get investigated. No, it was just practice. Look, I really don't like this track at all, and I just wanted a good start. So I done it. I was in a wee call with Dale and Alex the other day, just seeing the pace that they had, and I was like, nope, I must get faster. Turns out I'm a quarter of a second slower probably per lap than them, and that showed today because they were just so good in the sprint and the race. But like, consistency, right? You don't need to be the fastest. We need to just think about the playoffs, that top 5. I'm not going to get first. You know, Alex, they're so fast, and anyone else, you know, punches and stuff, very fast. But if I can just be consistent and sneak into that top 5, like, yeah, how cool is that?
And you had a nice little tasty battle with Dale towards the end of the race. Just talk us through that one.
Yeah, I was quite scared, to be honest, during that, but Like, I respect Dale. He's a great driver, and I just knew he'd give me the space. So I was like, do you know what? Let's do this. We had half a lap of intense battle. I think I finally just made it around, like, turn 5 or something. But, like, for the both DRS straights, that was great. Yeah, he's so fast, but I just had him with my tyres set up. I'm glad I started on mediums.
Yeah, honestly, to comment on strategy as well, starting on those mediums and switching to the soft compound tires seemed to work perfectly in your favor, and it seemed Dale was starting to catch you near the end of the race, but clearly just those soft compounds holding on. I mean, what was kind of going through your head? I mean, overall, from what you've said, confidence was kind of going a bit low, but that practice helping quite a lot. But when it came to strategy, was there any difficulties? Was there any, like, maybe second thoughts in your mind, or was it kind of like a fixed thought, like, yes, I'm doing an overcut, it's happening like this, I'm gonna make it work? Maybe did you even practice strategy?
I didn't really practice the strategy, but we watched the sprint race and there was not one safety car, and I ended that going, oh my god, it's F2 Creator Series and there's not been a safety car in the sprint race. So I was like, right, no chance am I going on softs, we'll go mediums. I thought the same would happen again, and it did. Like, well done to everyone on that grid. That is not an easy track to get 20 or however many was here, F2 cars around that without there being a safety car. So, like, that really worked for me. I was quite scared if a safety car came. I was really worried about my position, but it didn't. The tyre worked out, and yeah, Dale was catching near the ends, but I was just too scared to mess it up. I have been known to bottle something on the final lap, and I was just like, please, Scott, just be slower, just don't spin out, especially in Sector 2. Oh my god.
There's a silence here. To be honest, I don't have any further questions.
I'll just keep talking! You can't stop me! I'm here!
No, because genuinely, like, you stop talking, I'm just kind of like, people will see on the stream, I'm just kind of nodding my head. I'm like, yep.
Yeah, you get the commentator nods. Yep, I know all about that. Like, yep. Right, who's going to talk next? Who's going to talk next?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I thought T-Dub was going to speak, but no. To be fair, I'll ask a question or two, but you didn't exactly start in the best position for the feature race, and it wasn't exactly far back, but it would have been challenging for yourself, and you fought through like an absolute champion, and having that strategy towards your advantage as well. I mean, confidence may have been low, but I mean, overall, was overtaking easy? Because from what we asked with Dale, he found it quite easy. He actually said in his own words, and this was directed to you and the rest of the grid, he said he thanks it for being so easy to overtake, for not trying, was his exact words.
He's asking for it. I'm coming for you, Dale. We got 6 races left. Let's do this. We got content to make. No, it was good. I didn't have to overtake too much, thankfully. But everyone just seemed respectful. Anyone I was around with just seems like respectful, and like, we're going to fight you to the last inch, but we're also going to give you that last inch as well. And yeah, that little battle with Dale was probably one of the funnest battles I've had in a long time. You know, we're at the end of F123. It takes a lot to excite me, as it will for anyone. I know we're all just waiting for the next game, but like that wee half lap, yeah, that's kept me going. That'll keep me going for the next few weeks.
No, absolutely. F2 looking like a big, I mean, overall, you look like a quite a pacey, consistent prospect for the Formula 2 Championship here for Creator Series, and it's pretty well known to see from your feature race finish, and overall in the sprint race as well, you didn't finish too bad there. So overall, going into Japan next week, what's your confidence? What any type of strategy plans? Is there anything you may be having up your sleeve that will shock us as commentators, or is it going to be just putting your head down and trying to get the best result possible?
Well, as long as I don't get punished too much for a deliberate brake check, and I think I'm going to be completely fine. So F1 Alex and Mr. Dale, they need to go at this lap 1, turn 1. So if I can do that and get off a good start.
Rosberg incident.
Yeah, and then for me not to get punished, if anything promoted, then that would be really good for me. But no, Japan, I love the track. It's one of my favourite tracks in the world, especially Sector 1. I'm just really buzzing for it. I can't wait to have more fun, because I've had so much fun today, and that's what I wanted to leave the event with. I didn't care about the result, but I wanted to close my stream in the next 10 minutes and go, do you know what? I had a lot of fun, and I really did. And you guys, I can't wait to listen back, because I know you guys are banging at the commentating job, so I'll be looking forward to that. Works with you both, obviously. And yeah, I'm a happy guy. Japan, here we come.
I have to ask you quickly about next week. Obviously, you're going to be starting in the sprint race towards the back.
Yeah,
How do you think
yeah.
that challenge is going to be?
I'm terrified. I'm terrified. I'm not as... I ain't Hayden or Rob last year. I don't have the ability to go through the ranks. So I'm going to be really holding on to my one-shot qualifying for the feature race and hoping that that's where I can get some points. And you know what? We'll just go and have some fun in the sprint race and see what happens.
Absolutely. Well, you've certainly got some very good pace, though.
I mean, right? I don't know where that's came from. I think it's luck. I think once everyone's got a bit more acquainted next week and the coming weeks to come, I think you'll see everyone sort of catch up with me, and you'll probably still see Dale and Alex and a few others just kind of run off with it, though.
I mean, you never know. I mean, realistically, Formula 2 and overall motorsport as a whole, just as a genre, as a hobby, as a passion, for a lot of people, it's quite unexpected and can be unpredictable. And take OSQ, for example, for Brazil, it had a lot of drivers who invalidated and who started lower down on the field. So you never know. Realistically, I mean, you could go into Japan and start on pole position for all we know. You bust out the best lap of all time.
And fingers crossed, that's what I'm going to try. I'm just going to keep trying to just have these weekends be just as much fun with some lovely people that I'm getting to know a bit better as well, and just have a really good time. And I think if I do that, I will naturally manifest better results if I'm having fun and I'm not angry, getting caught up in incidents, yada yada. You know what I mean? The more fun you have, the better the results come.
Absolutely.
Any final words before we send you off for your celebration of P2 here for the feature race?
Yes, everyone follow these two commentators on social media. Get it done. They're very nice people, and they're coming on board again for another cracking season of F2, which has been such a cool addition by the Creator Series. And good on EA Sports for putting in more and more effort into it as well. Just well done, everyone. What a cool event, and thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for talking to us. So I think everybody in the whole community can agree with me when we say it's never boring talking to you. You always enjoy it. So thank you for having a chat.
You are the embodiment, the literal definition of happiness.
Yes.
I love that. I'll take that. I'll take that to the bank. But guys, go talk to Alex. It's been so fun. Thanks for chatting to me, and have a banging rest of your night, you guys and everyone else watching.
Cheers,
thank you, Scott.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
I mean, everybody's just so likable, aren't they?
I know. Everyone's a people person, and people are good.
Well, I think now we should speak to the fastest of people. Don't you agree with that one?
Yes.
F1.
Well, I mean...
Oh, hello.
I mean, listen. He don't get me wrong. He's competitive. He's rapid. He won the race. Don't get me wrong, but let's be honest, if a few other drivers didn't invalidate, we could have had a much closer finish. That's all I'm saying.
Potentially. I'm glad you said that before I dragged him in. So the first thing you said to him was, well, you won, but if everybody got it right, you probably wouldn't have done. But, it's nice to know that that's what you think.
All right, yeah.
Let's bring Alex
Let's
in.
get Mr. P1 here, because he was more competitive than anyone else on the circuit. F1 Alex, what a fantastic way to finish what has been a fantastic round for Campos Racing, a feature race win for yourself. How are you feeling after that one?
Hot and sweaty. I'm very warm in my back room. It was a good race, actually. I got out and I heard that, Jamie. I heard that.
No, I don't know what you mean.
No, you are right. When I finished qualifying, the first thing I said, because I was in a Discord chat with Scott and Dale, the first thing I said was, "Where's Dale?" Because obviously I was expecting him to be up there, and I saw he qualified P12. So that helped for sure. Because had he started P1, P2, he would have most likely won or finished second. I don't know, because we did similar strategies. So it would have been a good race. But no, the plan was just start on the softs and go. That was the kind of plan. I didn't know at the start that everyone, or the 4 drivers behind me, were going to start on mediums, but luckily they did. So yeah, I managed to just get away and pull a big enough gap to see it out on the mediums at the end.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Was there any worry in your mind, specifically with strategy here, when you saw those medium compounds and then they switched over to the soft compound tires, and we saw that majority of the people who switched those soft compound tires for the maybe remain like, okay, trying to say English here, for the last maybe 4 or 5 laps, they had a lot of pace behind them and they seemed to have a lot of consistent laps towards that checkered flag. Was there any worry in your mind that potentially F1 Scott could have cut down time and catch you, or did you feel like you had enough pace to just keep it out in front?
Yeah, I felt like I had enough pace. My chat was saying that I owe Dale a beer or 2. Because apparently he was fighting Scott, he was having a good battle with Scott, which helped me keep that 5-second gap for a good period of time. Starting on the softs, I knew that they would last 5, maybe 6 laps before they get to the 35% mark. So I come out of the pits and I think Dale was 3 seconds behind on the same tyre, but 1 lap, I had 1 lap fresher, and then I saw Scott and I thought, okay, I know he's pitted, so just ride out the next 5 laps and then I'll be okay. And yeah, I saw them battling and the gap stayed at 5 seconds, and I think there was about 5 laps left, I think, and I got cramp in my left foot, in my brake foot. So a little bit of worry kind of crept in because I couldn't really brake properly. But when we got to the last 3 laps and I knew there couldn't be a safety car, I was just like, right, bring it home now. I'm okay. But no, the tyres, the soft tyres at the start were very fast, but they did die very quickly. But I had that knowledge from starting on there, so that helped.
Well, I mean, obviously, you've come from Formula 1 and you've been demoted down to Formula 2, but as we what? Sorry, have I been...
I was in F2.
Excuse me.
I was in F2.
Sorry,
I was in F2 last season.
Sorry.
The telemetry has
Finished
been
5th in the playoffs.
telemetry has been wrong.
Right, never mind then.
I was in
Apparently we're
F2 last season.
demoted, and Creator Series has wronged me of my question here. So let's talk about playoffs then. Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah.
You obviously were a prospect for Formula 1, had some pace behind you to potentially reach that promotion, never did, and demoted down from F2. So I guess for the remainder of this season, is it kind of that push to potentially become a prospect once again and get into those playoffs and I guess show what you can as a driver? Obviously, winning a feature race is one way of doing it, but then just overall for the rest of the season, trying to keep that consistency and keep those results up on a daily or weekly basis, and just able to potentially reach that glory of Formula 1.
Yeah, I think I put a lot more practice in. I think Dale kind of alluded on it in his interview that we have done a lot of practice for this. Me and Dale, we was on till 2 a.m. the other morning, just sweating time trial, trying to beat each other's times. He'd send me a message and say, "Oh, I've beat your time," and then I'd send one back 5 minutes later and say, "Well, I've beat it, now it's your turn." So we're kind of pushing each other because we both want to get there. Of course we do, but there's only one automatic spot and the other 4 are playoffs. So I think it's a good start. My downfall is the sprint, and today wasn't too bad. I finished 4th, luckily. So yeah, it's a good start, but the aim is to win. But I think let's be realistic and look for playoffs. I think if we look for the playoffs, then you stand a chance. But no, a lot of practice is going into this season, I've decided.
No, absolutely. And, considering this teamwork and team up between you and Dale, I guess for Campos, obviously, as I mentioned at the start of this little interview between us, and T-Dub, I'm sure you'll be wanting to get a question or two, and I'll give you opportunity in a sec, but I guess for the rest of the season, I'm sure Campos will be wanting to try and keep up that confidence and that consistency that we've seen here at Brazil, wiping out that P1 region with both the sprint race and feature race, and you'll be starting near the end, if not dead last in the sprint race because of reverse grid to championship order. So I guess specifically for Japan next week, I guess what's your confidence for that? Because you're going to be starting near the end of the field for the sprint race. I guess you're going to have to try and make your way through it. I mean, what about your teammate as well? I mean, Campos is kind of going to be on the back foot for the sprint race.
Yeah, I think we'll work together for sure. Obviously, there's not as many points on offer for the sprint, so the way I'm going to look at it is the sprint isn't the end of the world. If you don't get points, it's hard starting from the back at a track like Japan.
Yeah.
It's different when you're, for example, at Brazil when there's a big long straight that you can overtake on. Japan, you to be fair, you have got a long straight, but it's not very wide. So trying to go through 130 side by side, I'm not sure that's going to be ideal.
Try this.
Oh, don't. But I'm pretty quick in an F1 car around Japan. I say to me I'm pretty quick, but to others I'm pretty slow. So yeah, no, I like Japan. I do like Japan, and I do fancy my chances. I'm more of a one-shot quali guy, so you'll see all my pace over one lap. My pace over the race is okay. It's a good pace, but I'll be focusing more on the one-shot quali in the feature race. And if anything comes of a sprint race, whether it's a win or points, then yeah, so be it.
I do just want to pick you up on obviously the championship fight. You're leading the way. You've got 30 points. Last season you were 5th, of course, with I think you ended up on 101 points. You've got 30 points now. It actually took you 4 races last season to get to at least 30 points. So this is an exceptional start. So it must give you so much confidence, considering the playoffs didn't necessarily go the way you would have wanted. To come straight back in, bang, get a win on the board. First win in F2 cars. That must be a really positive start for you. Yeah,
absolutely. Let's be realistic. Rob's not here, Hayden's not here, Matty's not here. So, had they been here today, you probably wouldn't have been speaking to me now. However, they're not here. So, yeah, I think let's crack on. It's a good start, 30 points. If we can take, I don't know, a minimum of 15 to 20 points a race, whether that's over sprint and feature, that would put me up at 140 odd points. So I think I don't know what Rob won on last season, but I'm sure it was around the 140 mark. So if we aim for 20 race, then yeah, we'll take it and hopefully we'll make the playoffs. But nothing's guaranteed. I think I had something about like 4 DNFs last season over how many races was it? 7, 8 races. So yeah, it's trying to be consistent but fast at the same time, which isn't always easy.
Well, you've certainly started in the best possible fashion, and we do wish you the best of luck, not just for next week, but for the rest of the season. We do hope to see you at least in those playoffs at the end of it.
Amazing. Thank you very much for your time. Really, really, I'll be going back and watching it. I did have the stream on. Great job, guys. Really, really good job. Look forward to watching it back.
I think that was known when you said that you heard my certain comment.
Oh yeah.
But
you are right. You are right.
No, I
of course you are.
I don't know what you mean.
You look at the faster drivers of the F2, and I think Mr. Dell was down in where 12th. Did he start? So, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Had he been starting at the front, completely different race. I don't have the lead that I did when I pitted. Having that lead, that allowed me to go 2 laps longer than I wanted to, which then gave me fresher tyres at the end. So yeah, it swings and roundabouts with F2. They're really not easy to control, but no, we did a good job today, and on to the next one.
Yep.
I wish you the best of luck for it. Thank you for talking to us, and see you next week.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, Tito. Cheers, boys.
Thank you. Oh, that is us done.
Oh. It is us done.
Shall we just to... oh, sorry. Do you want to say something there then?
Nah, just well and truly quickly before we do a little summary of the race. I'm a quickly... hang on. I have this. Yes, I have an actual microphone, but because I don't own a PS5, I can't use Discord with the console. So this fantastic sounding microphone can't be used, and it makes me very upset. Anyway, back to what actual action that's taken out, on circuit for Brazil for round 1 here. I mean, what a race. I mean, probably more unpredictable than probably what we were both thinking, no?
Absolutely. We had one-shot qualifying. I did not see only 9 people getting a time in. That was definitely added a little bit of spice into the mix. for the feature race. So we just go through the standings. Obviously, we've only had one race, so they'll be fairly familiar to you. But it is F1 Alex, like we told him, leading by 3 points ahead of F1 Scott and Dale. F1 Scott ahead on countback, courtesy of second in the feature race. Dale was third. Then it's B-Roy. Very solid start for B-Roy. We should probably mention that a lot more. 22 points. Really decent sprint race, excellent feature race as well. Really strong pace throughout for the ART driver. Excellent start. And then G-Watts just in that 5th and final playoff promotion spot. Although I'm looking at this and Spro8 is on 15, so maybe that is slightly wrong. Maybe it's Spro8 in 5th and G-Watts in 6th on 14.
You know what? Something else we should most likely mention as well. I think it isn't mentioned enough. Yes, we had 18 drivers, but 5 of them were I guess shields, or they were reserve drivers. They were, you know, driving on behalf of actual main drivers that drove on track. So obviously we didn't have Pondon, we didn't have Dirk Chocolate, we didn't have Sincerely or Zach RC, we didn't have Devil Noob, Luke Howick, or only Vic. So we lost out on majority of the main driver grid. I mean, yes, we still had majority of it, but there was still a significant amount missing, and a few people who are actually making their debuts here in F2. So they're going to be down in that championship, and they'll be wanting to push as hard as they possibly can. So that's another thing we need to mention. I mean, yes, we have Dale who's taken P1, and yes, we have, you know, Hampos at the moment looking more dominant than any other team on the track, but we haven't even seen what every driver can do this season. You know, we've seen a glimpse of what will take place in this season, and until we see Japan and also round 3 when we approach what I believe is mystery. Yes, it's a vote GP. Yeah, it's a mystery. Yeah, I think that's when we're going to start to see a big shift in the championship and that competitive field, because I think once those drivers who did miss out on driving today start to, you know, participate a lot more and actually do show up for F2, I think that's when we're going to start to see, like I just said, a big shift in what we've seen today.
Yeah, and somebody like JD Devil Noob or Zach RC that weren't here this week, very competitive last season. I think Devil Noob only contested the second half of the season, but picked up a sprint race victory, I think, in Austria. I think that we might have done that one in the rain. So lot of pedigree there for Devil Noob. So yeah, once we get more drivers in, I think it's just going to get more and more competitive. Should we talk a little bit about some of the people that will leave maybe a little bit disappointed? I think Punju didn't get off to the best of starts. The pace in the sprint race was okay, picked up 3 points there, but then got caught out in a first lap incident on the opening lap, went into the advertising boards off in the grass, picked up 4 points, but it is only 7 to his tally. But obviously, long way to go, and is only 7 points maybe off the playoffs. Adam Sanderson will potentially think he could have been a little bit higher up as well. Hoodie Pete also leaving the race with 0 points.
Patterson, probably another one. That DNF in the sprint race is probably something else that would need to be considered. I mean, something else that should be mentioned with Patterson as well. I mean, it was a late joining, as I mentioned a few times throughout the stream, but you know, obviously it was kind of like a 50-50 if he was going to be racing tonight, and eventually he did decide he was going to be driving. He has mentioned that he had a bit of a cold, but I don't know, maybe if he gets a bit more of a better condition, he feels a bit better, if he feels a bit more pumped and a bit more confident, he's got a bit more momentum and motivation behind him, then going into Japan we could see him go up, who knows, 5-6 positions for all we know. You know, he could score quite high next Grand Prix.
Speaking of next Grand Prix, Japan, another legendary circuit, back to back. We go from Interlagos to Suzuka. Are you expecting more of the same? It's probably a little bit harder to overtake. I don't think that's going to be too shocking an opinion, but I think Suzuka always throws up a little bit of unpredictability as well, but sometimes just in a different way.
No, I mean, well, I think I mentioned this as well at the start of the stream, just going through the calendar and all the tracks that will be taking place here for Season 2 of Formula 2 at Creator Series powered by EA Sports. But when we get to Japan, I think it just kind of represents how many circuits are so diverse. I mean, a lot of that would be like Silverstone and obviously Suzuka and Brazil, and I think Ooh, there's probably a few others I'm missing out on. I mean, you've got Austria as well, which yes has a lot of straight lines, but then a lot of those corners have a heavy braking points, and then you also have quite fast moving corners, like take turn 7 at Austria. A lot of the, especially the ones that are like main tracks, not street tracks, like let's say Monaco, for example, they're quite diverse. They have a mixture of technical, points that are both fast corners, and then you have hard braking points, and then you only have to lift to reach the, I guess, that apex of a certain corner, or there's long straights, but then it comes into that technical part, like for example Suzuka or Brazil. So yeah, I think at least at this point, until we get the Vote GP, which, let's be honest, is gonna be Monaco, it's gonna be an intriguing part of the calendar, just to see. It's pretty much testing the driver's limits, simply because of how these tracks are formed.
Absolutely, and we'll just go through the array of circuits that we will see in this slightly shortened F2 season. Obviously Japan, then the Fan Vote Grand Prix, where you will have the opportunity to vote on the circuit that these guys will tackle. Then we go to Shanghai, obviously in real life, I haven't been there since 2019. Singapore, I'm looking forward to that, that should be fun. Miami, and then we finish in another legendary circuit in Imola. So yeah, good calendar, should provide some really good racing, some very different battles going on, some very different circuits in there as well. And what we've seen in Brazil so far, act number 1 of 7 this season, I think sets us up perfectly for what should be a fascinating title battle and a fascinating promotion playoff battle as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you mentioned, some of the circuits on that calendar are still quite exciting, and I think something that will be desired. I'm trying to think of the right word, but I think a lot of drivers will be excited for, a lot of confidence, and I think there'll also be circuits that maybe are fan favorites, but a lot of drivers will feel a lot less confidence in. A circuit I feel like should be on the calendar, and maybe is, and I'm just blind, no it isn't. I feel like a circuit that could potentially be on it, because we've still got to vote GP, the Netherlands. Zandvoort in F2 cars. Imagine.
Those curves.
To be honest, the elevation chambers. Imagine. That would. Zandvoort would be amazing. So, fans, I may have potential bias, but please. Anyway, I said nothing. That's what you're going to take away from this.
Nothing. Ignore the last 5 minutes or so. We're just
Yeah,
debating random things. That is us done, though. We are going to hand over to the real F1 series. Start of season number 6. Got some driver changes. Got some new people going up. Got some people that aren't there anymore. I think that'll be very, very exciting. Just to finish this off, Jamie, where can everybody find you on the old socials?
It's going to be JPM13, well, underscore in between the JP and the M13 on TikTok and Instagram. So please go give me a follow. I post pretty often about my commentary clips and stuff. I'm pretty sure something from the sprint race or feature race will appear on my TikTok and Insta. So make sure you go give it a follow. I may just quickly put the name in for all you lovely people who may be slightly confused still. There you go. JPM13 on TikTok and Instagram. That's where you can find me.
And if you want to see what kind of rubbish I will start talking about, Tom Wilco66 on your normal socials. If you like darts, then we can get on that, because conversations about the old darts we can talk about. Thank you everybody for watching. Been a pleasure as always. We've had a brilliant start on a legendary circuit. We are now going to hand over to the big guns to get us kicked off for season number 6 of the F1 Crazy Series. So from myself, Tom, and from Jamie, it is goodbye, and we will see you next week.
Good night.